stakes on freeze, dreaming of liquidity, begging please. Pulsechain vibes, Richard's chain, actuator drops, bringing the rain. Those HTTs minting back on one-to-one, fungible fire, the fun's just begun. Discount Hexfire, fixed return so sweet. Farm that ACTR can't be beat. Actuator, unlock the flow. Hex time tokens, watch them grow.
Yeah, I'll never buy Hex and stake it again. I'll be using this for now on.
Oh, dude, yeah, I'm on the fringe. I've been saying that a lot to people. Like, why at this point, because I'm further along in my development, why would I ever do another native stake? I mean, there's some reasons maybe I would do this in like the COM area, but with what I expect to have happen with Hex, and knowing that the primary liquidity for this entire ecosystem is Hex, whatever Hex does, this ecosystem does. So, I mean, it literally is one-to-one until somebody sells or buys, right?
Well, I hope that one of the things people will end up taking we as they get familiar with this, even just the simpler strategies, never mind the complex ones, is that we can coin the term active liquidity. When you get involved with having, say, a Hex HTT liquidity pair, you still have Hex liquidity, right? It's just active Hex liquidity, not passive do nothing Hex liquidity.
Right.
And, it's the quote unquote impermanent loss is relatively minor by most measures because it's all Hex. It's only whether it's in today's Hex or future Hex and what level of discount you get. So allowing people to trade through you and collecting some fees along the way and maybe farming while that's still available because you got your liquidity pair token you can do that with. I'm hopeful that it will encourage the deployment of Hex into more and more stakes because there is an ability to access some liquidity at a market-based rate. So I think, the pendulum swung too far from day one. Day one, everybody was long and strong everything. Then they all got beat up. And now everybody's, I'm not staking anything. And so we went the other direction because there's not this nuance in the middle that will loosen the grip on passive liquidity. And I think this will undo that.
Right now, some of the more advanced things that we would look at, if people be like, it's only a few dollars, I'm not interested, they're not interested in staking. But at 100x or 500x, all of a sudden, these are very big plays. All right, let me go through and we'll get started right here. I prepared this document. We'll do a little bit of looking at some slides and then also going over to the website that the guys have built. So thank you everybody for coming. I am going to approach this like KISS, keep it simple kind of approach. And at first, I'm sure it won't stay that way. So welcome. So the topic here is to talk a little bit and do a little bit of deep dive into the actuator ecosystem, which you could call it a hex finance ecosystem, right? This idea that Bill was just getting after about being able to dive into, into liquidity and or capital that's otherwise dormant. All right, it's not working. So when I hold my hex liquid in particular, right, and I'm doing nothing with it, it's just sitting there waiting for the market to do something, and then I might do something with it. If I stake it, it's there and it's staked and it's earning, but it's also dormant during that period. And there are ways to put that to work as well. So with that, a very high level, currently within the ecosystem, there is 6 different tokens plus X. The HTT tokens, 3,000, 5,000, 4,000, 6,000, 7,000, not necessarily in that order, as well as the actuator token itself. And the best way to think of hex time tokens is hex in the future. Each of these tokens is redeemable for 1 hex on hex day, whatever, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Again, trying to follow this keep it simple. Here's what we can do with this ecosystem. Very high level. Hex stakes are used as collateral. Right? The HTTs, you can consider them to be tradable bonds. They appreciate in value over time until they get to maturity. And then the actuator token itself is revenue sharing. And that's an important point because people don't treat it as revenue sharing right now. They're treating it like, mostly, I think, treating it like a reward token. And why that's important is if you were to hold your actuator and put it in the vaults, you actually earn more hex with it. And again, I would tell you that some people might, they might not be super interested in hex at a penny, but if you're earning, 1 hex a day at $10, that's a whole different thing, And I just threw that number out, as just a benchmark, not that that's what people earn. Well, I tried to break this down with a lot of help from a lot of other people into what the opportunities are that get created out here. And this is where, as I'll go through some other slides here to go in a little bit more detail, but this is where we may branch off into detail. I love my most favorite one is the first one, which is the fixed rate hex yields. And this is something that C3 Bill brings up a lot. Just simply listen, there's a lot that you can do with this ecosystem, but you don't have to do everything, and everything might not be for you, right? You can pick and choose what your methodology is. And so for the hex lover that's out there are people that are putting HTTs up, which are hex in the future, at a severe discount. And so if I want more exposure to hex, I could just simply go buy the HTTs when they're cheap. I lock in the discount. The website shows me what the discount is. It calculates already what the anticipated APR is and ROI. And I can look at my hex stakes and I can see that Quattrocinco is only doing 5% right now. So would I be better staking or buying right off the market? Well, in some cases, I might buy it right off the market because it's so cheap. And in other cases, I might want to mint, and then take advantage of the arbitrage. So we have things like the fixed rate that you can nail right away. A little bit more advanced is yield curve trading, where people are actually moving on the curve their assets. If you envision this as a timeline going into the future, you have the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7. A year from now, the 8. After that, probably a 9. Don't know what the plan will be, but somebody will do something. And you can actually rotate into these assets as you go along if that's your choice, and kind of move your timeline and follow that yield curve. So then you have things that come up because people are using the system, like arbitrage and mispricing, where right now the 4,000, 6,000s are very, very, very new, but they're very expensive. We can see that when we look at them. There isn't enough yet out there to make it meaty, but as we go along, what I would expect to see, people are going to bring those prices down, right? They're going to mint them. The liquidity will get bigger, but they'll take advantage of that gap, and you'll see them minted and sold into the market for more hex, because it opens up what we call amplified exposure. Now we can do it at a very, very small level right now, but I can go print HTT 4000s or 6000s and right away swap them for more hex. So I'm going to make up some numbers. I can make 1,000 hex stake today, HSI, and do a Quattrocinco, locking in rates for a very long time, which is a very good thing for me. Turn around and mint 1-to-1 a 6,000 token. And if the condition is right, I can swap the 6,000, take my 100, my 1,000 hex, get the HTT 6,000, then turn around, take the 6,000, trade it for another 1,000 hex, stake the 1,000 hex for Quattrocinco, print 6,000, and just do that until the market actually moves, because it's at that much of a profit, and that's something you could call an amplified stake. I would, you know, way to just compound your exposure. Now, a lot of us had experience with this with the Hedron ecosystem. Yes, we're waiting for a bunch of things to happen with that now, so it doesn't make sense in that ecosystem. But in this ecosystem, everything is hex based. So that's another big point because of the you know, the low risk, you know, of the fact that my HTTs won't be worth X. They are worth X. They'll always be worth X. And if I wait until the expiration date or the redemption date, they're 1 X. And then the final piece here is that revenue participation. And that's where I think, again, it's okay that, you know, when I've talked to people like Axis and others, you know, the primary strategy, not everybody understands this, you know, vaulting of ACTRs. But the primary thought is, hey, listen, we see what happens with these tokens. They go down in value. And sure enough, Actuator's gone down in value. It hit a kind of a bottom. I don't know if it'll stick. It hit a local bottom. It had a little bit of relief, and it's retraced upwards again. But most people do just treat it, like I was saying earlier, as a reward token, so the price goes down, not a revenue token. Now, in a future where potentially Actuator is very much used, right? Though those ACTRs are going to be gold because you can earn a percentage of every new mint, you know, and so yeah. And of course, for those who are looking for passive income, that can allow you to create passive income of a sort. I guess passive is kind of a loose term with that, but the fact that you can vault the ACTR, you leave it, you don't have to come back to it. You can put it in 7,000 or 6,000 and just come back next year, 2 years, whatever. There's plenty of runway for it. The whole time it would just earn more HTTs. So then that gets us into, okay, well, you just said a bunch of stuff and you gave me this complicated slide. So let's break this down a little bit further by category, and then we'll go into specifics for people. So yield farming and liquidity mining, right? So it's both there. They're both there, right? We have the ability to earn Actuator as the reward, as the revenue token, and you also have the ability to earn HTTs by putting your Actuator into the vaults. Yeah, bond-like trading. Now this stuff starts getting pretty interesting at big dollars for sure. It's interesting now to me, but just the idea that you can take the mispricings, and another one that Bill brings up a lot that I love, this idea, and it took me a while to get to it, is the idea that I could be staking for Quattro Cinco, minting something like a 7,000, and if conditions are right, I can get all my hex up front from that, right? Simply by, if the conditions are right, swapping them for an underpriced earlier date or something that might even be close to the same discount. And that we can look at the dashboard and actually see. Leverage and amplification, just mentioned that, the idea that you can actually recycle and go through this. Arbitrage and market making is a big deal on this. Again, in the current state, this is year 2, beginning of year 2 of bootstrapping. All right, it's not that this system's been around for 5 years yet, so it's all very new, and so there's definitely some efficiency plays that can be made, some arbitrage plays that can be made, but this isn't the first stop. Like I said in the previous slide, right? The very first thing I'm looking for is, hey, is it cheap? Can I get hex cheap? Right. And then my speculative play is, can I get Actuator in the vaults to get hex cheap? Right. So those are my 2 initial plays before I get into like all this brain numbing hardness, right, of doing it. And then for those who are really, really advanced in their portfolio and think millions of dollars, not hundreds of thousands. And you know, a lot of people might roll their eyes at that, but you know, Hex was 50 cents. It's going to go back to 50 cents. And I think it's going to go a lot higher. And, you know, I mean, I don't see why over a cycle or 2, we're not looking at $1 or $5, right? And then these are very big dollars, you know, at 100 or 500x, right? I mean, and who really knows what the top could be? It's crypto. We don't know. But this is a system that's set up that you can really begin to understand it and manage your entire portfolio in a way that I don't do today because I'm not a home office, man. I don't have that need at the moment, but I hope to, right? I hope to. So then that gets into trying to break down some of the plays, right? And another thing that comes up, and I asked this question as well, who in their right mind would mint HTTs? Why would you even do it? It doesn't even make sense. Well, you have availability of that instant liquidity, right? The idea that by minting those HTTs, you can actually go do something with it because there's a market that's made. I don't have to understand why the market's made, just like I don't understand why the market's made in most of crypto. People might make the market. They have plays. They think they're doing something. They make a market, right? But what I do know is that I can mint HTTs, and there is a market for them. I can see the market. It's visible, right? It's there. So I can actually take value out and go do something with it. Yes, it's like all of crypto. I mean, there's a risk reward. And, so if I'm minting an HTT, I'm thinking, well, I have the HTT. I don't have to ever sell my HEX. I just got to pay my HTTs back. And that stake's still mine, right? I just have to pay it back. Well, if that's the case, I'm gonna do what everybody's gonna try to do. I'm gonna sell the top, and at the bottom, I'm gonna buy all the cheap HTTs to meet my meet my needs. Additionally, and some people may not know this because they haven't seen the system at this depth and haven't actually done the minting, but every day that your stake accrues more value that's accessible, you can mint more. It's not limited just to a single mint. And you can mint a portion, right? You can mint all of it. And then as it accrues, you can mint more. So every year for 7,000, for instance, which is pretty far out there because it's still about 14 years, I have potentially more HTTs that I can mint. Right. And that applies to all of them. The rules are different for each setup and what somebody did, but again, the dashboard will tell you exactly what you can mint. And so you can continually do this. And then of course I mentioned the exit strategy already. Our optimum strategy is sell high, buy low, right? So, but it is a speculation. And again, what I would say to you about this is the primary liquidity is HEX. The primary liquidity is HEX. If HEX does 100x, HTTs are going to do 100x. And so now, in the absence of anybody else's play, my HTTs just went up 100x. I can realize my 100x gain, all right, and not have sold my HEX. And at the bottom, I could buy it back, and it's all mine, right? Now, a little bit of this is player versus market. Most of it's like, I'd say 60% player versus market. Maybe 40%, 30% player versus player, right? Because people are going to be trying to do the same type of thing, But again, I go back to an HTT will be one HEX in the future. The primary liquidity is HEX. They're going to move together. That's how it works. So again, for in a world where HEX, I'll give you a real big number, in a world where HEX is $10, I don't want to sell $10 HEX. I don't want to sell it. I mean, I would like the money, but I want to sell it. I want to hold it because I've got that locked into a Quattro Cinco stake. The Quattro Cinco stake is earning very well, the greatest APR it can in the HEX ecosystem. I've got share rates of today or earlier, not share rates of the future. I don't want to sell that HEX. I don't want to break down those stakes. I want to continue to earn, and it gives me that leveraging. And then finally, the fee recapture, which is that depositing of the actuator to earn HTTs. All right. So then you might say, well, okay, so that was the HTT guys, right? Which you might be someone who never mints. You might be the guy who just buys, right? Buy cheap. And then if you are a trader, you like trading, you might be trading expensive ones into cheap ones, right? The yield curve trading. My words for that. Right. You might be trading in and out of HEX. There will be a market at some point a little bit more developed where HTT to HTT trading will become a thing. right? Particularly with price appreciation. So you have these types of different plays that people may make that are traders, right? And then again, the cycle positioning, always a big one, right? Buy low, sell high. And then liquidity provisioning, again, you can earn actuator emissions for the first 3 years, right? We're going into year 2 now. Year 3, it'll change again. But currently, as of tonight, right, UTC 0000, we will have all 5 of the tokens, the 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the liquidity farm. And people will be able to earn actuator over this period of time, 250 million in this next year, spread against those farms. Details you can find at actuator.finance in the documents. And again, what kind of opportunities that open up? Well, we know 4s and 6s are very, very new. 4,000, 6,000s are very new. If you had any liquid actuator in your token, in your wallet right now, I would go put them in the vault. This is just not financial advice. I go put them in the vault under those because the LP is very low, and we can actually see that the LP is going to grow because we can see what happened with 5s, for instance, and we see 7s, and we can kind of guess that 6s are going to come in the center there, and that's going to be something like 30 million HTTs maybe minted, probably. We'll see what the market does, and 1% of that is going to be given out to actuator vaulters, right? And so again, a way to earn that, and then. For the actuator holders themselves, I did just talk about that. You get that revenue share, you get the diversification. It is deflationary. And by the way, while its primary liquidity currently for actuators, Pulse, is necessary, I believe, because Pulse is the ecosystem that people are using and they're going in and out of. There's also about a 50% value. Well, it's about 12 grand in the Pulse pool right now, about 5 grand in the HEX pool. And I would again expect actuator go up with Pulse and also kind of match up with HEX to some extent, however that liquidity fluctuates. So again, actuator is going to do what Pulsechain does. Right? It's not gonna do something different. Now people are selling it so for value, but there's other people accumulating it. You can see them doing it. I mean, I'll wake up and because I'm not a big mover like that, so I'll go in and look and like somebody bought 1,000 this morning. Not this morning, but I'll wake up in the morning and be like, "Oh, we'll price it back up." I thought it was going down, so somebody is accumulating it because they are playing this strategy. All right, and then the final slide that I have on all this is maybe not for everybody, certainly not for everybody, and maybe not as much now, but in the future, particularly with higher values, I see the cross HTT arbitrage being a big play for people, and I'm not encouraging anybody to bot this up, but I wouldn't be surprised somebody already botted it up in some way, right? Meaning trying to detect these types of things and just, we see it on Pulse value. I don't know if they're exactly, I'd have to do some more analysis to see. I haven't seen any bots actually actively working the HTTs, but I could see that particularly if value goes up. So then you have that action that might happen. Again, the HEX versus HET arbitrage. And then there's also incentive with all of this, besides the actuator, just providing LP in general with HEX. So those are my real high level kind of thoughts about what the plays that are out there are and what our circumstances are with actuator. And beyond that, it's looking at I think it's looking at the dashboard and other information. So what do you guys think? I mean, does that cover it the way you think of it?
I think you made it easier to understand.
That's the goal, because it's like, well, I hear the stuff and I'm like, well, so what does it mean? What does it mean? I'll give you a great example of something when we look at the dashboard, and I think you can see the actuator dashboard here, and you can see how they have the 3,000s listed with the prices and etc. Right?
Yeah, it's important that you're showing this because getting familiar with the data that's on here can really bring some intuition, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about some of that as we go.
Yeah, Bill, jump in because you might want to talk about this one rather than me try to take your words. But one of the opportunities right here that I'll point out now is a low opportunity at the moment based on LP size. But this is something Bill brought up, right? I mean, just simply by glancing at this dashboard, I can see that my discount to HEX on a 6,000 is about 23%, 23.6%. But the discount on a 4,000 is about 23%. Now you can make the argument that that's similar or the same. And why don't you take it away from there, Bill? Because I think you can cover it a little bit better.
Sure. So one example, this is what I'd call sort of an intermediate level strategy. The simple ones are buy what's cheap and sell what's expensive. That's fairly simple. So you look around and find what's cheap and buy it. You look around and find what's expensive, and then you can mint it and sell it. So those are sort of entry level starting points. But the next thing that you're highlighting here is when you notice something about the discounts that sticks out as unusual, there's probably an opportunity. And so in this case, because you've got the HTT 6000 and the 4000 at the same discount to HEX, that should tell you that the two different time spots are being priced the same way. Well, that should open up an opportunity. And in this case, I'll just describe what it would be. You can probably see it. Right now, I should be able to go and create a day 6000 HTT, or I'm sorry, stake in HSI. I could go to the platform here and do it. Once I've made well, let's say it's 1,000. Let's say I did 1,000 hex and I made an HTT 6000. Then I delegated and minted 1,000 HTT 6000s. Next, I should be able to swap my 1,000 HTT 6000s for effectively the same amount, 1,000 HTT 4000s, because the discount's the same. So whatever I'm getting back out of one, I'm buying with the next. It's as though I just accelerated my 1,000 HTTs from day 6,000 to day 4,000, and all of that principal comes back on day 4,000 rather than 6,000, even though I have the full earning power of an HSI on day 6,000. And that works because those two HTT spots are the same discount. Again, you have to make an allowance for slippage and trade size and other weird things like that. But conceptually, that's what the math would say. I'm not giving anything up in terms of number of tokens to walk in the conversion of an HTT back to hex.
Yeah, you're literally time traveling.
You're time traveling in that scenario, and the market's handing you that opportunity. There are times where you actually got paid to walk in. That's, when you get an inversion in the yield curve, so to say, you can end up with strange, and we could go find such examples on the chart below. Notice that chart down below this area right there. That's the history of the HTT prices in hex terms. Now you can select dollar terms if you want, but that's not as useful as seeing how these things have behaved as a discount to hex. And there are times as you look around this history, especially back there around December of 24 and January of 25, where you had very bizarre behaviors, mostly because it took time for people to understand why should all of those, like look at December 20th over there. If you just hover over December 20th, that general region, all three of those HTTs were about the same discount, very tight. Yet their time frames are radically different, but I can get the same amount of HTTs at the respective spots. Surely there's an opportunity. And of course there is. You sell the long one, you roll it in a whole bunch of days and get back almost the same amount, but a whole lot sooner, even while your HSI is running with the full earning power. So let me pause on all that stuff for a minute.
I will add to that when an HTT is overpriced, you can also use that to get more T-shares, right? Like, so the HTT 6000s, I know that's not what we're looking at right now, but today the HTT 6000s are overpriced, I would say. There's not a lot of liquidity. But I ran the numbers this morning. If you just did a 5555 stake or to stake till hex day 6,000, you extract for 100,000 hex. Not 100,000. Yeah, that's right. 100,000 hex. You get 12 T shares, mint HET 6,000s in the liquidity pool. There's not much. You get another and stake and swap the HET 6,000s for hex, stake that again for the same end stake day. You get an additional 5 T shares. You can do that again and get 3 T shares. That's the conditions today.
Infinite money printing. Yep.
Well, that's what we call the amplified stake, and it's not infinite because the market is not going to let you keep doing that before the price corrects, but you might
You're
get a
right.
number of recursions, and so for the exact same capital that you would be deploying and leaving sit there, you now have 3 different T-share positions, not one.
Right. Yeah, and to kind of underscore your point. Now, this is some data that I'm working on, so this is all things that are in progress. So I have some pricing type things I'm working on. But to give you an example with the LP on 4,000, or we were talking about 6,000. The 6,000, probably a safe swap is maybe only $600 worth, right? And so it is limited by the amount. And I say safe swap because I'm doing a percentage of the LP, right? Like what's not going to knock it out, but it just gives you kind of an idea just how new these two are with the 9,000, 12,000. Where on like a 7,000, I'm pretty safe that I can do a $9,000 trade. You know, I would feel comfortable with that, right?
Yeah, so Crispy, we talked about the amplified stakes. Everything we've said it feels like, yes, basically what you've said already, Crispy. So nice job. If you scroll down on this page to the yield curve, let's see, yeah, this guy. And maybe it's easier if you flip it to total return, might be just easier to visualize at a glance. But yeah, so you'll notice this chart's displaying the HTT fixed yield versus the kind of implied hex stake yield across various time horizons. And you know the simplest strategy, as you talked about earlier, is just to buy HTTs that are underpriced, and that's especially the case for this. If you see the 5,000 point or the 7,000 point, you know those are the yield across its full time horizon is looking a lot better than hex staking, and not to mention it's fixed, so you know you don't have the same risk involved or volatility involved, and it's in liquid form already. Like you can trade in and out of it anytime between now and it's you know it's redemption day. So from a simple strategy would be to just buy the HTT as opposed to staking at those time horizons, as opposed to the 6,000, which Super Boxy was just talking about. That's the inversion there, or in that case, the opportunity exists in the other direction, where you're now can do what we talked about, the amplifying of your stakes. So if the blue bar is above or below the orange line, that presents one opportunity or another. Yeah, and the orange bar is it's a projection, right? Because we can't know for certain what the long-term yield is going to be on a hex stake, but you can know that on an HTT. But that projection is based the hex stake projection is just based on the assumption that the payout per t-shirt for the past for the past few days, I think it's 7 days is we have it configured right now. That'll be the HTT or the payout moving forward. So you could toggle that assumption in this chart. I don't know if you've seen that. Like in the chart elements, you could drop down and include it's at the top there. Yeah, you can include payout per T share is an element you can overlay onto the chart, which allows you to adjust the payout per T share assumption. So if you check that or select that guy, you'll be able. There's some chart features that allow you to those little gray balls you see. Those are the that's the payout per T share values, which you can slide up and down.
Okay.
So you can drag those gray balls up or down a little bit, and that it's kind of sensitive, but as you move those around, you're building in your own model assumptions of what the payout per T-share will be on those hex days, and then you're seeing analysis in light of that assumption.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah, there's a lot of functionality in the charts for sure. I mean, God, I'm sorry.
I was going to highlight one other sort of simple idea that people can watch for, and that is if you want to scroll back a little higher to the right there to this, maybe put it in the middle of the screen. Oh, I'm sorry, it's one more up, the next one above it. Yeah, this guy, and reset it so that we're not just looking at the zoom over there on the right. There's a reset button. You're still zooming.
I lost my screen. Hold on one second. I'm looking at the wrong thing on my screen. Boomer problem. Hold on. Why am I looking at the full chat? My screen. Here we go. Sorry.
So on the right side of that chart, there's a reset zoom so that you unzoom and you get back to the full chart.
My goodness. How am I going to get over here? Hold on one second.
Yeah, it's probably got Zoom stuff covering it.
There we go.
There you go. So notice this. I just want to go back to the simple strategies of buying and or selling HTTs. Let's say, just to make this point, go on over to March of 25 and hover over the yellow curve, just for the sake of the conversation. A little lower, a little further right, where it hits that trough. Right there. Okay, now notice what is the price on that day for HTT 3000. It's essentially, let's call it 0.6 hex, right? So if I were to have bought 1,000 HTT 3000s on that day, what would I have paid? I would have paid 600 hex, right? Now, move over to the middle of June, where it's at the peak. A little further right, hit that peak. On this day, what is the price of an HTT 3000 in terms of hex? 0.96. I have 1,000 of them. If I sold the 1,000 that I previously bought for 600 hex only a couple of months earlier, how many hex do I get back? I get 960 back, which is an increase of 360, which is over a 50% return in a couple months. I grew my hex bag simply because I could identify where the discount was wide and I was willing to hold it. I might have been willing to hold it all the way to day 3,000 and I'm guaranteed to get one back. But by the time it hits 96% of one, well, maybe that's rich and I ought to sell into that and redeploy in another HTT that's got a big discount. So just working with the ebbs and flows of widening or tightening discounts can be a way to grow your bag even while you're letting time run along, realizing that all those curves over time will trend upwards towards one. They're just going to, oscillate a bit according to market conditions.
And I think it's helpful to just emphasize the parallel to the US dollar bond market. Like there's, I don't know, 10 trillion, 100 trillion dollars in volume on these. So like this is basically a hex denominated, decentralized, immutable HEX financial system, right? So the if as HEX grows, the trading and the opportunities, there's precedent for tons of activity.
Yeah, because like if we were talking about that 1,000 example, right? The 1,000 hex or 1,000 HTT example, we're talking about what, $10, right? And so a lot of people might not, because we use that as an example. A lot of people not super interested in $10, but at 100x, right? Now it's $1,000, right? And most of us aren't messing around with $10 to start with, right? So you could make plays. I showed you kind of like my guess as to what safe trading could be for some of them. I mean, so it's pretty safe to be able to do $1,000 tranche and then be able to get 100x on in price. All of a sudden, what you're working with is much bigger capital. That's why it's important to me to understand this now, right? I want to understand now. So that we can work on it later with much higher prices. And I'll get to your question here, Bets, in just a second. I just wanted to point out, this chart that you were talking about, RJ, at the bottom is very good to be able to compare it. What I'm doing currently when I look at these is I'm just like eyeballing it and I'm saying, well, 7,000 is going to give me an APR of 7.6. That's a lot higher than 5, relatively. And so I know that 7,000s are underpriced, and then I can verify that by looking at the charts below. And so if I was coming in to get more HTTs just to swap in, I'm going to swap in probably to 7,000s. I might swap into 5,000s, a little bit better, rate, and just being able to benchmark it that way.
As a simpleton, I also see the opportunity of just seeing the huge discount in the 7,000s and thinking, hey, instead of staking Hex natively for my son on hex.com, I can use this and put it out there. And at a certain point, it's going to come up to 90%, of the Hex or close to $1. And the extra 40% you're earning, it's huge because right now, the results that we're getting with our Hex stakes, because the OA came in and staked so much, our rates have dropped so much.
Yeah,
that extra 40% you're earning is gigantic. I see the opportunity there
it's
throwing them out long.
I agree with you. That's a good point. Hey, by the way, about the time I became super interested in actuators when he always staked, right? Because then it was a lot clearer to me because I went from looking at 20% APR-ish, APY, roughly whatever the number exactly was, to it's very much lower, right? And so then it was like, well, I can't do this anymore. It's even harder to discuss. Now, Vets has a good question about liquidity and and he's basically saying, hey, are you saying the liquidity will be there as more adoption takes hold? Yes, I believe that's the case because, like for right now, there are people setting themselves up to earn a ton of actuator, or excuse me, a ton of HTTs with the actuator by putting them in the vaults. But the only way you can earn that actuator is you need to set LP. But you can't sell LP if you don't have the tokens. We're already showing you that they're overpriced. They don't exist yet. Somebody's got to mint them. And so the people who actually put actuator in the vaults will earn HTTs. They have to. And to be able to add the liquidity. So it's definitely a connected situation, right? So you're going to see some people will mint HTTs specifically to set LP to earn actuators so that they can earn more HTTs or to earn the rewards. I mean, it's not a bad rate. I mean, it's pretty good. You can earn pretty good, even if you are selling your actuator right now. So it's kind of a reinforcing kind of a cycle. Boxy, did you want to talk about your comment?
Well, to add on, I mean, you already covered a lot of it, but just to add on to what you said, like I don't see generally speaking, broad picture, I don't see a reason to own any liquid hex when I can just put it in a HTT hex pair. It's a one-to-one stable swap as long as my timeline is aligned with the end stake day. So like HET 3000, I might not want to plan to sell that till 3000. Then that's just a day hex day 3000. Then that's just a stable. So you're limiting your risk while earning LP fees, maybe earning ACTR, and buying hex at a discount. And so and it's still liquid if I need to sell it. So it's sort of kind of a no-brainer to me. I mean, I'm sure there's smart contract risk, obviously, and if you need to sell it in this next 6 months, then keep it liquid, obviously. But
yeah, well, and I would argue there's a case for not keeping it liquid and going into HTT because of the situation with the LP. Right. Now the newer ones, smaller LP pools. Okay. We need to see them grow, but like a 7,000, unless people sell the 7,000s off the market, it's going to be the same. It's going to go up the same percentage as HEX. You really can't get away from that. And so you effectively get the same result, unless you think people are going to sell the 7,000s now. But in the case of that, if I have the 7,000s and I had gotten them from minting, I still have my original, right? And come back. I got plenty of years, man, to get really cheap 7,000s and get my HEX back. So I'm agreeing with you. I'm just going a little bit further. I feel pretty safe putting them into HTTs myself, but it is definitely individual choice, right? What people would want to do. Because that's like the number one question. Like, why? This doesn't make sense. Why would I even buy HTTs? The simple use case doesn't make sense. Why are people doing this? Are they crazy? Well, listen, they have goals. They're doing their thing, right? All I really need to care about is that there's a market. One HTT is redeemable for HEX. And if I can buy it cheaper on the market today, I can redeem it later, right? I mean, I can just wait till day 7,000 and I got one HEX, right? So I mean, it's secure. But yeah, I get that there's lots of strategies people are doing. Right?
Let me make another point here, because you bring up the point that people sometimes wonder, well, why would somebody do the other side of my trade, which is effectively the form of the question, right? Well, you could ask the same question about Apple stock. If you're eager and you think Apple stock is going to go to the moon and you're a buyer, you could be asking, why would anybody sell their Apple stock? Well, because they have a different view about circumstances and they have different needs and objectives than you do at that moment. They might need liquidity. They might love Apple stock, but they got to raise some liquidity to go buy a house or whatever they're going to do. So the same is true here this is a market for liquidity. And some people are liquidity makers, meaning they have liquidity and they want to deploy it for return. Other people's are liquidity takers. They have a need to get the liquidity to go do something in real life or do something, whatever it is they want to go do. Maybe reinvest it in some additional staking, whatever. So it's a market where those who have liquidity want the return. And so the APR, and this is an important point, if you're the one that is bringing liquidity and buying the HTT, then that APR represents your return on your investment. If you're the one who needs liquidity, so you're minting and selling the HTT, then to you, that APR is a cost of funds. You're paying that in a sense as you sell the liquidity to the other guy. So you're on that side of the market, you're looking for the lower APR. If you were going to say, I want to raise liquidity, and let's forget the different liquidity sizes for the moment, you would go and look heavily at the HTT 6,000, I think, because that's got the lowest cost of funds. So that would be an ideal spot. You would not want to be inclined to mint and sell the HTT 5,000s because that's the highest cost of funds. If you're the provider of liquidity, you want to buy that because that's a return to you. So you need to think and realize people have different objectives, different issues they're trying to do. And it's a market because some people are there to make the liquidity and others are there to take it. So that's why people do what they do. And there's a lot of opportunities.
I have a life, I need some money, or I want more HEX.
Yeah, all the above. Well, I think it's important to, I think it's an important point, Bill, because I don't have to know why people are doing the other side of the trade. I don't need to know for it to work for me. I just need to know that HTT 7000s are really cheap and I'll get more HEX because that fits my need.
What's really important, though, is that you can appreciate that there are people on both sides of the trade and they both have motivations. Because
sure.
If you only had one side is always right and the other side just must not know enough, that's headed to zero eventually. Yep. And we've seen that in other projects.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't seen more questions about people coming forward with their HSIs that they had gotten like in and the auctions and whatnot. But I'll give you a great use case because I did have a wallet where I bought these HSIs in auction way back when. I got my copies. I have the HSIs, and they're just sitting there. I mean, they're 15-year HSIs. There's no market to sell them, right? I wasn't going to get much for ICOSA, and I put it off for a really long time doing anything with them because what was I going to do it? Right? Just waiting for Alex to come forward with whatever the next plan is and see that market come back. So here's a use case. It made sense for me to do it because I wanted to do it. I went and printed 7,000s from all of my, not all of them, the ones that made sense for me to do it. I printed HTT 7,000s from all my wallet of HSIs. I swapped half of them at that time for HEX. I made that choice because it's an isolated wallet. And I put them all up in LP, so they're earning Actuator, right? And then I take the Actuator, put it into the farm, and I earn more HTT 7,000 to pay back my 7,000s in the future. So now I've kind of amplified that whole play because you're just sitting there doing nothing, earning 5% now. They earned a bunch early, and so for me that made sense to do that.
Well, and that's a really important point is that the simplest way to do this with the least amount of complexity is to build new HSIs on the spot of the HTT that you're going to create. So you could create the HTT 7,000 and mint that, and then you don't have to worry about the timing of the two. But it's still the case that you can use any HSI, right? So all those from those auctions can totally be used. But, there's a little bit more to understand about how the timing of your HSI end stake date times with the HTT. And the documents will give you a little understanding about that. But you can use them. You can totally use them.
I didn't realize you could do that.
Yeah, I'll show you something here on the screen. I'm connecting a dummy wallet real quick. So show me on the screen. I think you guys can see the staking screen. So
yeah.
So what it's a good point Bill's bringing up. Now, again, this devil in the details, there's always more strategy, right? I personally, particularly for long HTTs, I would go Quattro Cinco. That's just my choice, right? I'd go Quattro Cinco because now I'm getting a Quattro Cinco stake in. And so, for instance, if I put a Quattro Cinco stake in for 100,000 HEX, I can mint 100,000 6,000s and 100,000 7,000s right off the bat after it goes live. I could do that. However, if I wanted to come in and just use this system directly, I can go to new delegated stakes, and I can actually pick the HEX day, put in my 100,000 HEX. All right, it's going to create the HSI, and I'll be able to mint the day 7,000s, and then go immediately do whatever I was going to do with them. I don't have to wait for the day to end or anything. It's integrated into the system.
And you can do a 5555 here too if you click custom end day.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't sure about that, I guess. So if I come in to custom end day, it would have to be it's going to have to be a date though. If I did that, that's I have to add up the days, don't I? Or is it's just simply 555 like that?
You'd have to know you'd have to do the math here. So like the current HEX day is what, 2173. So 2173 plus 5555.
Oh, that's a UI update for the future.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, because with you guys just saying that, because I've done it both ways now, and I know we're getting into some detail for everybody listening, but I've done when I wanted to do the Quattro Cincos, I just did them separately myself. But because I don't want future day whatever,
right?
HTTs, I want 7,000s, right? So I just did it separately, and then after the day rolled over, I came out and minted my 7,000s.
Yeah, I'll add that.
All right. Let's see. I see we got a bunch of people that joined us. Thanks everybody for joining. Had about 10 people watching. This is recorded. If you have questions, drop them in. We've already had these guys on for an hour, so I don't know if we'll be able to keep everybody. But if you have questions, drop them in the chat. Raise your hand. You know, I saw a couple of weird little raise hands, but I don't see anything listed. But we can definitely keep going. I could talk about this topic probably all day.
I think one interesting thing you brought up earlier, Crispy, is thinking about the actions of the vaulters in the next few weeks here with the farms coming out. And yeah, I thought that was a good insight in thinking about we saw what happened with the other farms, how they, the yields were really high. And then in order to, those yields started coming down as more people started participating in the farming. But in order to participate in the farms, you have to mint HTTs, and minting HTTs means there's more, of that revenue sharing that occurs for those who are vaulting. So, I think you can kind of do the math here and think, okay, if the APRs are going to converge at some level, like maybe they start out at, I don't know, 1,000, and then they quickly drop down to like 50%. Well, until they get to that point, you can expect a really rapid rate of HTT creation. So I think, yeah, keeping an eye on those farming APR rates is indirectly going to potentially tell you, what kind of HTT minting rate are we going to see in the short term here. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see that dynamic play out in the next few weeks when the new farms go live.
Yeah, this is for me, actuator's a speculative play within this, the token actuator. That's my speculative asymmetrical play. And what is it based on? When I say that, why do I say it that way? The safest way for me to work with actuator today, take my reward, swap them to HEX, right? That's the safest. I immediately get my reward, whatever it is right now. I know that's what it is. And you can see over time, I put the chart on a 3-day, that we've seen a degradation in pulse value until recently in September. So it was just kind of going down. I mean, every once in a while, somebody come in and push the market up, right, and accumulate a bunch. That's like the safe play, but that's not my play. My play is to keep the actuator and to put it in to the pools, because I think that what I'm seeing is there's an opportunity here that this may become a multi-deca-million protocol, right? I mean, I think it's possible. But that would mean adoption, right? Okay, still new, right? Just a year in. But if we have super adoption, I want pieces of that HEX, man. And so in that way, I'm keeping my actuator because I don't want to sell it. But people purely, yeah, do whatever people want to do. I mean, there'll be opportunities probably where actuator drops in the market, just like everything else. It's tied to pulse, right? But in terms of what to do with it, yeah, I mean, a couple different plays, and I'm speculating that this is going to be, a cycle out. Maybe 2 cycles out, this is deca millions, $100 million worth of value in the protocol. And in that case, I want a piece.
In some ways, it's leveraged HEX. I mean, maybe to oversimplify it, because you use ACTR to basically earn HEX. So
yeah, exactly. You have that. And then I don't expect, I don't know if you guys have plans or what you would share or not on this, but I would expect that at some point when there's no more actuator being minted, and even before that, or I should say rewarded, the liquidity situation for actuator is going to change, right? I don't want to provide, you guys know that I went and did all this liquidity testing and stuff, right? And my conclusion is I don't want to provide actuator liquidity right now. I want to provide buy side actuator liquidity. I don't want to provide sell side because I'm trying to accumulate it, right? And at some point that will change for me, and then I will, whatever our tools are available to us at the time, I will put myself into a position to earn off of actuator through the trade. I'll have enough for whatever my goals are, and then I'll be able to provide LP. But right now we have relatively thin. I mean, it's 11K on act. I mean, it's pretty thin. I mean, nobody could argue that this is thick liquidity. but that works in favor of people trying to accumulate the actuator. But people are able to get out. I mean, we see plenty of sells, throughout the day. Some of these are ARBs, but there are people like it was $136 sell, and somebody was able to get out earlier today, and the market's been buying it back. If we go look at the actuator liquidity, we've got the HEX liquidity as number 2. We do have a little bit of V3 out there. You got the emit farms, Solid X is out there. I mean, so it's not the worst token I've seen, in terms of liquidity and volume. I mean,
well, it's still a reward token. Reward tokens usually suffer really badly during bear markets, and then they turn around and go absolutely crazy during the bulls. So I imagine we're going to see a real uptick soon with all the reward tokens, and Actuator may lead the way.
Yeah. Well, and I think, of course, on this topic, when we're talking about Actuator, we can take a look at where's the best place for me to see I guess I can do it this way. Where's the best place for me to see how many have been minted of each?
If you go to under earn and then, oh, you're talking about for the HTTs?
Yeah. Well, we can just go to farms, right, to see what's in the farms value was. It's not going to give me the quantity, but we can get a kind of eyeball it at 50%. So 168K worth of deposits are on the 7,000 now. And so if we take that 168 and divide that out, that's what? So we've got about $84,000 worth of sevens out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if we go to, back over here, do you have the price here on this one? Let's go back to dashboard. And at 00344, all right, that's about how many tokens? That's quite a few tokens, right? About 28 million. Is that roughly what it is?
Yeah. There's also, I don't mean to derail you. There's the total value extracted row.
Oh, yeah.
So that'd be the total circulating value of all HTTs. Is that the number you're gonna, or up on the top left, there's a little table.
On the left
in the metrics there.
Yeah. So there's okay,
so 111 million worth of HEX.
Yeah. That total value extracted number, though, is that's the total HTT value of all HTTs in circulation.
Yeah, I guess the reason I was trying to go after it is, and I think I had it on my sheet. I may not have done it completely, but rough numbers, right? Just looking at year 2 farm opportunities here, what the LP is for the 4s and the 6s, and we can see that the 7,000 roughly at the time I ran this was up at 181,000. Right, and the 5s were 139,000. So I can make a guess, right, that somewhere between 140 and 180. So this isn't perfect, but I would expect $160,000 worth of LP at some point in 6,000s, right? That's what I think my growth is, and so that's 150,000 worth of LP that needs to be added. Roughly 75,000 of that needs to be 6,000s, and so whatever number of millions of 6,000s need to be minted to get there, and that's why I think that's an opportunity for the Actuator vaults, because somebody's going to mint those millions of HTTs to get there. And so then I get the opportunity to earn the HTTs because I would be in the vaults.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, guys. Anything else anybody wants to bring up before we roll out of here? I appreciate all your time, guys. I mean, I know we're all super busy, but I think it's going to be very valuable to the community of people to be able to see this, prompt some more questions, be able to come back maybe with even more detail at another time.
Well, it's great that you did this, and on the day when we're going to see the farms kick
Yeah,
off
dude.
here this evening.
Isn't that curious? That was not on purpose. Just happened. Happened to line up.
Midnight UTC. We'll watch it tonight.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for everybody for joining again, and we will see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Locked in 8 stakes on freeze, dreaming of liquidity, begging please. Pulsechain vibes, Richard's chain, Actuator drops, bringing the rain. Those HTTs minting back on 1-to-1, fungible fire, the fun's just begun. Discount Hexfire, fixed return so sweet. Farm that ACTR can't be beat. Actuator, unlock the